pleasure to introduce to you the man of the hour,
Tony.
Hello and welcome back to At the Gates. I'm your host, Tony, and with me is
Jared.
And this is the 30th different stadium that we've recorded a podcast at. Well, that I have. So that means we've collected them all. Jared, you just did the tour.
You gotta catch them all.
That's true, and this one might be whatever the most rare and awesome is, at least in my mind. But you just did the tour. That was your first experience at Fenway. I've been there once in the past, never caught a ball. But what was your first impression after the hour and a half?
I don't know. What time did I text you? It was about an hour, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe a little bit longer. I didn't pay attention, but first impressions are the stadium's in a lot better condition than I figured it would be. I really liked it for a lot of different reasons. You just get a better feel for just how quirky the alignment is, or not the alignment, but just the layout is. And I think that I feel like I connected a lot more with it today than I had just watching it through TV.
And would you say that you probably connected with it more than you thought you would?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, since we are sitting at Gate C, so on Lansdowne, right across from House of Blues, I figured that would be a good question for you is, how do you like the neighborhood?
That yawn was not an indicator of my feelings towards the neighborhood.
It's more like yawn keyway, am I right?
Burber. I really like the neighborhood. There's a lot of sort of restaurants and bars and music halls. We're sitting across from the House of Blues.
Team shops,
things like that. There's what seems to be a number of parking garages that I can see, or that I did see along the way.
They're probably very expensive, but at least there's something.
There's something right there, adjacent. Where was the train station?
That's a little bit of a walk, I think,
it?
a little bit further
Well,
down.
I mean, a little walk is not so bad.
No. In fact, it kind of detracts people from, I don't know, not too many, like, it still gets very crowded, but at least it makes people kind of choose between the two rather than just all funneling in.
Sure. So it seems like this place could have a really great game day atmosphere that, I mean, we probably won't experience the full extent of it because of the fact that we're going in early, but...
And on a Wednesday. And it's cold.
I mean, yeah.
And gray.
And there's a chance for rain, so...
But imagine this place during the playoffs, it'd be insane.
Right, yeah. There's a lot of good, like, architecture and just building texture around here, interestingness that kind of makes me like, wow, I wish I could spend more time here than just, the one day, but that would give a lot more context to the whole neighborhood for sure. I haven't noticed, like, it'd be cool to know, like, okay, well, how long has that brick building right there, that souvenir building, been in existence? Just because you can see the doorways have the mini roof over whatever those are called, over the doorway and stuff like that. So arched windows, and you don't see that kind of stuff anymore.
And yet it also looks like things are very new and built up around here as well. I mean, House of Blues is pretty new looking, especially the right side of it, the larger venue, the larger stage. So they've kept it up and probably got rid of the things that were falling apart, but then on the other stuff it looks like they've kept it up.
Yeah, like this is the kind of stuff that Yankee Stadium needs for sure.
Yeah.
When we were talking about just boringness on the outside,
The lack of soul.
Yeah, there's nothing to keep people in the neighborhood. There's nothing there to make people want to look up at the building other than just the couple of gate spots like you were talking about before on your Instagram post, which most likely people will see after this comes out, or already by the time that this comes out. And then, just there's so much can be said about having a legit, like, downtown-y kind of neighborhood around a ballpark.
The one thing that this is missing, though, that Yankee Stadium had, I'm sorry to say it. Do you know where I'm going with this?
Taxis?
No.
A lot of sirens?
Family Dollar.
Station? Oh, yeah. Family Dollar and Taco Bell.
I mean, those are some nice local places to New York that you just won't see here in Boston.
Exactly, yeah. No chain stores like that around here.
So, if you are to estimate where this stadium will rank, at least in the 3 that we've seen so far this week, where is it, and compare it to the other 2, like, relative-wise? Like, is it close? Is it far away? And that whole story.
The Fenway Park experience in general is, so far, night and day difference than the other 2 ballparks. For me, it goes Fenway, large gap, Citi Field, moderate gap, Yankee Stadium. Yep.
And if you were to guess where Fenway might fall in the ones that you've visited, maybe even on a scale of 1 to PNC being your 10, where does it fall?
So far, I would say probably, wait. That's a good question because I can look it up. Hang on. TV timeout.
We are looking in.
Play some elevator music with your mouth.
What are? Boo doo 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 boo doo doo boo doo 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 deep boo doo 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 doo.
So.
Oh, Oriole Park was your number 1?
No, I just listed them on one day.
Okay.
I haven't gone back.
I thought PNC was your favorite.
I listed them in one day, and I haven't gone back around and sorted them yet. I've done a little bit of sorting, but not total. I would say that it's probably, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no. Top 8 for sure.
Do you think it has a fighting chance of being maybe a top 3 or even a top park?
Top park, no. I think there's, with such an old ballpark that has tight seating in a lot of areas, I like the sort of bandbox feel of it, it's got some relatively wonky circulation, things like that, that come with an old ballpark. While that gives it uniqueness and everything, we live in a modern world, and unfortunately for me, the way that works out is circulation is important to me and things like that. So I think that it can't be a top ballpark, but it could be top 3 if I think about it.
Which we can get into this debate in a separate podcast, but I would like
We've got plenty of time on the drive tomorrow to discuss it.
But I would like to toss this out there. If you say that you need turnover and you like modern...
What do you mean need turnover?
Like, stadiums eventually need to meet their end and have modern...
Okay, right. I'm with you. Go ahead.
The one thing that I would ask then is, if you do want new stadiums, who pays for it? And if people aren't willing to pay for it, then what do you do? Shouldn't you almost give them a little bit of credit because they're not using as much taxpayer dollars? They're not crippling some economy, and they're making a historic thing to bring in more business and make it an area rather than just a parking lot like Citi Field.
What I'm getting at is not necessarily that they need to burn this place to the ground and build a new, because I like it as it is, okay? But with such an old ballpark, living in a modern world, we have to accept the fact that it's not going to have certain modern amenities that make it easier, simpler, faster, whatever, to get around, to get what you want, to have the experience that you might enjoy or whatever. And so my personal preferences aside, I think that we can agree that, you know, every stadium has their positives and every stadium has their negatives, and it's dependent upon your personal preferences and my personal preferences. Yep. So for me, I don't think they need to burn this place to the ground and start anew. I think ultimately it's just that it's a great ballpark to me, and unfortunately, like, because of the way I move around a ballpark for photos and things like that, to get food, and, you know, just circulation is important. Now, we obviously I haven't experienced circulation with respect to an actual game yet because we're not in a game, but those could be negatives, and I can't promise a top spot to something that I haven't experienced yet either. So
I think that's fair. The one thing that I would say is, rather than, it sounded like you like modern, but what I would say is maybe you like the current era, because the only reason why I bring that up is there will be a new modern.
Exactly.
And
I like the amenities, the modern amenities that are available.
Yeah.
But I still really do love old stadiums, old arenas. I mean, I'm a fan of the Kansas Jayhawks, and their field house that they play in is Allen Fieldhouse. That was a 1950s era basketball arena. I'm a huge fan of Dodger Stadium, and that's a 1950s era or 60s era baseball stadium. Yep. Like, that doesn't mean there aren't things there that I don't like about
the only
it.
Where I was going with that wasn't necessarily past versus present. I was thinking more present versus future.
Sure.
And knowing that the future, and we've seen it happen even at Target Field, and especially like SunTrust and areas like that, is not only are there more exclusive and luxury areas and higher ticket prices, but we see more bar areas. And considering that isn't really our style or your style, I think, would you say that might, just because it's modern amenities, it wouldn't grade as high because you're not partaking in them?
It could, yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. It's just like I said, it's all preference based, right? Like, however, I recognize that as that's something other people like to partake in, and so it's an experience amenity that some people like. Now, when we went to Coors Field, they have a lot of those kinds of areas, and because you have such a variety, that makes each trip to the ballpark that much more unique, because you can go up to the super high right field section, or that one in the lower right field corner, or the one behind home plate, or, you know, or you can visit a couple and, you know, sort of bar hop across, or, you know, like, it's just it's a difference in unique experience. Now, I'm sure if I had more time to spend here, I would probably prefer this over the other ones. Here being Fenway versus like a Coors Field or whatever. I do like the newer stadiums just because it has a cleaner feel to me. But I really do love old buildings. with that cleanliness of the new modern stadiums is a sterility like we were talking about with Yankee Stadium. And here, the reason why I love this stadium so much is because of the fact that they didn't have the option. They weren't afforded the ability to just say, we're going to build this monstrosity of a building and you'll just come here because it's our team.
Yep.
Like the Yankees can do. Here, they shoehorned a stadium into a tiny amount of space, and it's unique because of that.
Yep. And over time, they added small parts when they could, but it's still at its core basically what the original stadium was.
Exactly. Yeah. What I am surprised about, though, is given the push for all these modern amenities, I am surprised why hasn't there been more of a push to incorporate a lot of that kind of stuff more frequently, you know? Obviously you can't expand outwards really all that much, if at all. However, upwards is always an option, and when you go upwards, that affords you the ability to change your internal layout a little bit, and enough to potentially include a lot more of the amenities than you may have not had before. So not that they need to, but just it's interesting that there hasn't been that, you know.
Unfortunately, I think with Fenway and something of this age, it's going to be harder to do upwards, especially with basically your skeleton that you built it on might not allow that.
That makes sense.
But going forward, I mean, did they foresee it when they built something like Target Field or something else? Who knows? Maybe.
Right.
Yesterday when I was down by the Padres dugout, I talked to Eric Hosmer because I had my sign that said 29 to 30 stadiums, and he goes, which one are you missing? Told him Fenway, and told him that I was doing that tomorrow, which is today, and he goes, oh, you're saving the best two for last. So it's kind of interesting because whenever I see posts from players that come to Fenway, it does seem like it's their sentimental favorite. Mm-hmm. Do you have that at all? Do you have a difference between your logical favorite and your sentimental at all?
Yeah. I mean, for example, again, going back to Allen Fieldhouse with Kansas, like that's a team that I followed my whole life, and they have an old stadium. So I can, similar to Boston, I can see why so many people here would have a sentimental attachment to this place, for as quirky and as fun and as weird as it is, you know.
Do you have it with the baseball stadium? It seems like the closest might be Dodger Stadium to me.
Mostly because Dodger Stadium to me has always been this enigma, this thing that's like I've put on a pedestal for some reason. The semi-tropical climate, the colors of the seats, the Art
first
Deco,
West Coast the baseball team.
Exactly. Like there's just for some reason I haven't really connected in that way with Boston. Maybe it's because it's an AL team and the Twins always stink against the AL East, or they did for a long time, and you're just like, oh man, I hate that team, I hate that stadium, why would I ever go there?
Or the weather isn't exactly LA.
Exactly. So that's sort of where I lean towards, but it's hard to ignore a Fenway or a Wrigley because it's the same thing, just from a different city and a different team.
And I think that's where I come from is I think the logical side of me might think that AT&T now or Oracle Park is the best, but there's still the sentimental side of me that because of the history, because of the fact that I can connect with the game in a much longer and deeper way here, it's my favorite in a different way. So those two are like one and the same and yet completely opposite.
Yeah, it's like the Masters. You can watch any other golf tournament on TV, right? And for the most part, the majority of the golf courses, the golf tournaments, like there's a bunch of them that change venue every year.
Yeah.
You know, PGA Championship, US Open, all that kind of stuff.
British.
There's a bunch of others that stay in the same place, some of the TPC ones and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, the Masters is the Masters.
Yep.
Like, that place has been around forever, similar to Fenway. The more you watch events there, the more you recognize, oh, that's that hole.
Yep.
That's the pine straw that Phil hit out of. That's the hook that, or the fade that
You feel like it's never going to go
Bubba
away.
Watson did. Yeah, like you just start to recognize certain. And so now when I go back home and watch, you know, Red Sox games on TV, I can connect. Like, I sat there.
Yep.
When I was on the tour, I got to go to that place and I got to see this thing. And wow, that monster it's big. Surprising, like, of all things, I didn't think the monster was as big as I thought it was going to be. Like, on TV, they make it look ginormous, right? But at 37 feet, like, yeah, 37 feet is tall, but also it's not really that big, you know? So it seems big on TV, and it sounds big in voice. And then you see it in person, you're like, wow, that's pretty big, but then also it's not as big as I thought it was.
Would it be fair to say that people's attachment might be twofold? Kind of like you were saying, they can identify throughout history different players that have done different things in that same location.
Pesky's pole and the short corner and all that kind of stuff.
And then the other side is it's almost an entry point. Like, most people might not think right away and know the name Petco Park.
Right.
But everyone, even novices, would know, oh, Fenway Park.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that, like, it's the base knowledge.
Yeah.
It's not going to get you extra credit, but it's just something that is almost in, like, the DNA of baseball.
Yeah, I would agree.
Well, cool. I think we're in agreement. Any shots that you want to get in there? Anything that you're trying to plan and think you want to see more of?
Well, if it's, you know, if security and the ushers are as lax as it sounds like they are, there's a few shots that I'd like to try to get from the monster, from underneath the press box. We couldn't go in the press box during the tour because they closed it off because of game day. I don't know if the clubhouse is open for. It looks like a Plouffe jersey. I don't know if the clubhouse was part of a normal tour, like non-day game tour. So, but if it is, we didn't get to go in there because obviously it's game day. So, but I want to get that, you know, that typical home plate one high below the press box. One from each corner somewhere, one from the monster, just because.
I think what would be cool is also sprinkle in the random obstructed view shot too, just to show how crazy it looks from, like, behind a pole.
Yeah, there's plenty of that around. I tried to get some of the seats earlier. However, because they're such dark seats and they are under an overhang, and it's cloudy, the lighting wasn't all that good, and I wasn't able to adjust my settings fast enough as people were pushing me over to sit down during the tour. So I'm going to try to get that too. So we'll see how it turns out. I don't have any Holy Grail type shots right now.
Unless there's a rainbow.
I got a lot of them there won't be a rainbow today, but
it might sprinkle.
It's not going to clear out enough to get a rainbow. So
what if it does? What if you're not in the area?
There is not a chance for a rainbow today. There's 0% chance of rainbow.
I think there was no chance at the All-Star game too.
There was much greater chance at the All-Star game than there
That's
is
2 days and 2 podcasts in a row that I get to bring up the rainbow.
You know, I don't know why I travel with you. You can go on these trips by yourself. Going forward, for all I care.
If anyone wants to pick up Jared on the way, he's going to be in Boston now.
You know, I've gotten over it. At some point, you probably should too, you know. So.
I mean, that's fair. I do have a picture, so I'll get over it.
It's fine.
It's okay. I'm sure you'll snag, like, I don't know, Eddie Rosario's 800th home run.
Maybe if I try hard.
Maybe they're opening it. What time is it?
3:08.
Pretty soon. 3:30. Any last words? Any last words?
He doesn't like when people duck under the gate.
Oh, I thought he meant like he doesn't like ducks.
Maybe ducks ducking under the gate.
Yeah, he would hate Geico then. Not a sponsor.